As I mentioned, most regularization in neural nets both uses early stopping and penalties. Let's look a little bit more closely at these penalties and their geometry. It's common to use two different penalties. We train to minimize the training loss. If it's a real value, maybe the squared error loss, or if it's a classification, maybe a cross entropy, plus a constant times some measure of the size of the weights, either an L1 penalty, the sum of the absolute values of the weights, like a lasso regression. This makes all the weights a little bit smaller, shrinking the small ones to 0. Or we minimize the training error plus a constant c times the L2 norm of the weights. The sum of the squares of the weights, or the square root of the sum of the squares, is actually technically an L2, like a ridge regression in the linear regression world, which particularly shrinks the biggest weights. Often people use both an L1 and an L2 regression penalty, making the weights smaller in a couple different ways. Finally, it's not uncommon to also have a cap. The weight cannot get bigger than a certain size in absolute value. This can be viewed as an L infinity penalty. So let's look at these L1 and L2 norms. The L1 norm is the sum of the absolute values. If you look at a weight 1, weight 2 space, what you can see is this blue diamond shape or dashed line diamond shape is a line of constant size of a W1, W2 vector. So what happens if you're maximizing that, you will tend to drive something, if you have a red line of optimal, to some point that often zeroes out, in this case W1, keeping W2 relatively small. In the L2 norm, the lines of equal size vector, W1, W2, are circles. Right? A circle is a set of all points that are equally far in the L2 distance away from the origin. And here now, what you see is if you're trying to minimize an error, represented by some red line here, that will be at some point where W1 and W2 are neither made to be 0. Geometry, not critical for this course, but the idea that there are different measures of how big something is, and it's useful to use both of them, very important. Give it a try.